Good evening, everybody. I'm seeing many new people who have joined today. A very warm welcome to all of you in this session of Divine School of Homeopathy. Yesterday, we have finished the Organon of Medicine, the 6th edition, consecutive 171 lectures and 291 aphorisms. In detail, we have explained. In fact, it is a commentary on the Organon of Medicine written by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann and explanation done by me. It was a wonderful voyage, and many of you were there since start of the Organon of Medicine. Whatever we have learned is understanding of the principles of Organon with the simple illustration explanation. And it is nothing but the philosophy as explained by me. Now we have to learn the Kant's philosophy. Before going into the details of the philosophy, I want to tell you few important things. What is philosophy? The question arises, what is philosophy? Philosophy is a simple illustration of the principles with the help of simple examples to explain the big, very important thing and explaining it in details so that anyone, even a layman, can understand it is nothing but the philosophy. Whatever Hahnemann have written in the 6th edition of Organon of Medicine is nothing but the total result of his experimentations written in a proper aphorism style. If we start with the first aphorism, it takes long time. Nearly, I took 1 month to explain the first aphorism because it has that much of depth. It has that much of understanding. And that's why to understand all those things is nothing but the philosophy of those aphorisms. There are 3 important philosophies in our curriculum: Kant's philosophy, Stuart Close's philosophy, and third important is the H.A. Roberts philosophy. It is nothing but their view to look towards the organ of medicine, their view to understand the organ of medicine in a simplified manner, and so that anyone can understand it in depth. So that is what is a philosophy. Today, we're going to start with the Kant's philosophy, Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy by J.T.K. If you open the first page of that book, there it has been written by Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy by James Tyler Kent, AM, MD. And under that, his achievements are mentioned. Those who are students, they should go through it because there is always a short note is asked about those great peoples in the field of homeopathy. One of them is Kent, and that's why what Kent has achieved, it has been written over there. So everyone must know and must write it as a short note over there. So he is the author of Repertory of the Homeopathic Materia Medica and Lectures on Homeopathic Materia Medica. He was Dean of the Postgraduate School of Homeopathy in the Philadelphia for 9 years. He was professor of Materia Medica at Hahnemann Medical College and Hospital in Chicago for 6 years, and of the Herring Medical College in Chicago for some years after. So these were the achievements which were there in the Kent, on the Kent's name. And this is one more book, that is Homeopathic Philosophy, Lectures on Homeopathic Philosophy, written by him. Then there is a publisher's preface, that is 5th edition, regarding 5th edition, which is mentioned in my book first. I think it is given in next page on your book. So publisher's preface to the 5th edition. Whenever you have to learn any book, you have to start right from the preface, because preface gives you exact idea what is given in the book. One should always start reading the book right from the preface, and that's why it has a meaning. So we'll read those preface, first preface to the 5th edition by publishers, and preface by Dr. Kent. First, we'll read the publisher's preface. Kent still lives. His influence still shines, a burning torch to reveal the truth. This is written by the Ehart and Carl, who were the publishers at that time. Those were the publishers who has written these sentences in Chicago, July 1954. And they have written, yes, Kent still lives. And Kent still lives because of his lectures, because of his repertory, because of his work in the Materia Medica. No one forgets Kent. If anyone turns towards homeopathy, he never forgets the Kent. If you go through the lesser writings written by the Kent, you'll never forget the Kent. This is one more book, lesser writing by J.T. Kent. These were few important monuments in the homeopathy, and these are written by Kent. So this fellow is still live with us because we are learning his all the details. We are learning his Materia Medica, we are learning his philosophy, we are learning his repertory, we are learning his lesser writings. He is still alive. From the far corners of the earth, that is from Pakistan, India, South America, Mexico, everywhere comes proof of this prophecy. The coming generation is demanding the message of the master who scaled the height of the homeopathic law of cure. And he was the really master after the Hahnemann, who has done a very big work. He was the first person who started going beyond the Hahnemann. He was the first person who says whatever Hahnemann have explained regarding the miasm is little bit basic aspect of the miasm. It is not only that, it is beyond that, it is more than that. And that's why whatever Kent has written regarding the miasms in his lectures on homeopathic philosophy is the wonderful aspect of it in his intelligence, his logic. And he has explained just separation is not the miasm, as Hahnemann have explained. He explains it is more than that. It goes beyond that. And that's why he was the first person who followed Hahnemann at the same time gone beyond the Hahnemann. A revival of faith and new adherents everywhere makes Kent's books more and more sought after. And we herewith present to the profession the fifth edition of Philosophy in Full Knowledge, that it will fulfill its great mission for the present and the future generation as it has been the past. And this work which he has done is really a wonderful work, and one has to understand, one has to learn, one has to follow whatever the work which has been done by the king. And that's why these were the publishers who have published this book. Actually, it is not a book written by Kent. These were the lectures delivered by J.T. Kent when he was teaching to the PG postgraduate school of homeopathy. And those verbatim taken by those publishers and published it in the forms of lectures. So this is a wonderful work done by these publishers so that it is available for us to learn. In as much as all four previous editions have been exhausted, this fifth edition will be held far and wide with eager desire, which we, the publishers, are glad to have the power to fulfill. Ehart and Carl, publishers, Chicago, July 1954. And this is that, yes, this is the fifth edition, and which we are using in day-to-day practice and which we are using in learning the homeopathic principles. Then there is a preface written by author, that is a Kent, and this preface is again having meaning because what he wants to say in this book that has been written over there. We'll read that preface and then we'll turn toward the first chapter. What it says, preface by Dr. J.T. Kent. These lectures were delivered in the postgraduate school of homeopathy and published in the Journal of Homeopathy, and now in somewhat revised form are given to the profession with the hope that they will prove useful to some in giving the clear apprehension of the doctrines of homeopathy. So what is Kent says? It will be useful for the newcomers in the field of homeopathy, and they will get acknowledged with the homeopathy with the help of these lectures. They are not intended in any sense to take place the organon. What is it? They are not the things which replace the organ. They are the things which are but should be read with the work, with that work, in the form of commentary, The object in each lecture being to dwell upon particular doctrine sufficiently to perceive and emphasize the master's thought. So what he says, these what lectures are not to replace the Organon, but one should read Organon along with this lecture so that you can get acknowledged very easily the lectures, the aphorisms from the organ of medicine very easily. So these are the lectures which are in order to understand the organon in a simplified manner. Not all of the paragraphs in the organon have been considered, as many of them are sufficiently clear to reader and their teaching is quite obvious. So he has highlighted few aphorisms, few aspects, more important aphorisms he has taken into consideration, and his own philosophy regarding those aphorisms have been mentioned. Homeopathy is now extensively disseminated over the world, but strange to say, by none are its doctrines so distorted as many of the pretended devotees. And when he has written it in the 1900, what he says, many of the doctrines are not followed by the people because they have not understood. Homeopathy is distorted. Distorted म्हणजे त्याचं रूप विकृत केलंय. It has been absolutely distorted. Who have done this? By the pretended devotees. Pretended, they are showing that they are homeopaths, but they are not really homeopaths. They are using homeopathy on the principle of allopathy. These peoples, they never follows the doctrines, and that's why homeopathy is not coming clearly. Homeopathy treats of both the science and art of healing by the law of similars, and if the art is to remain and progress among men, the science must be better understood than at present. So what he said? If you go ahead with understanding the science, both things comes. It is not only the science which is useful, because it is not only material thing. When we deal with the homeopathy, we deal with the material human being as well as dynamic human being. And whenever things becomes dynamic, the science comes hand in hand with art, or art comes hand in hand with science. It is needed, without which you cannot give a perfect prescription. And that's why both plays vital role in the homeopathy. To apply the art without the science is merely a pretension, and such practice should be relegated to the domain of empiricism. There are many people who never knows the science, and just for the sake of homeopathy, on the principle of similia, some gives the medicines, but every time they never get the success because they don't know the science behind it. One must know the science prior, and then he utilize the art. Then it shows the pure results. To safety practice the art of curing sick people, the homeopathic physician must know the science. And this is what he wants to say. One must know the science, then he can do a very good practice. It is not expected that this course of lectures covers the whole field of homeopathic philosophy, but it is intended to serve as an introduction to further study and as a textbook for students, that they may have a sound starting and become interested in objects of this work. So what he is saying over there? It is not a complete work on homeopathic philosophy. I have tried my level best for the students to make aphorisms in a simplified manner, the important aphorisms. And this is the path which I have explained. One should go ahead with this path and understand the rest of the organon so that everything will be cleared in students' mind. So with these two preface by the author himself, that is Jetikent, and preface by the publishers, will directly start with the first chapters on the lectures on homeopathic philosophy, the Sikhs. And these are the two words which are collected by Jetikent from the first aphorism. I know everyone knows the first aphorism. The physician's high and only mission is to restore the sick to health, to cure, as it is termed. And these two words are collected by the Kent as a name of this chapter, because if you understand these two words, the sick, then you will understand really the concept of homeopathy. And that's why he has written a big chapter only on these two words. If there are students in this session, this chapter is very useful for them. It is a full question asked in the exams. Explain the concept of the Sikh according to the Kent, either for 20 marks or 10 marks. So must understand the concept of a Sikh so that you can write it down. So we'll start with the lecture number 1, aphorism 1, the Sikh. होमिओपॅथी ऍसर्ट्स म्हणजे ठासून सांगणे, एखादी गोष्ट जास्त ठासून एखादी गोष्टीवर जास्त महत्व देऊन सांगणे. होमिओपॅथी asserts that there are principles which govern the practice of medicine. Yes, it is there. It is the only medical science which has cardinal principles. There are 7 cardinal principles on the basis of which homeopathy is formed. Law of similars, law of simplex, law of minimum dose, the doctrine of vital force, the doctrine of drug proving, doctrine of drug dynamization, and last one is doctrine of chronic diseases. These are 7 cardinal principles. Only medical science which is based upon all these principles. It may be said that up till the time of Hahnemann, no principles of the medicines were recognized. And even at this day, in the writing and action of the old school, there is complete acknowledgement that no principle exists. Kent has written it in 1900. And he says that till his time, there were no principles in the allopathy. And before Hahnemann, there were no principles in the allopathy. And till today, there are no principles in the allopathy. This is the basic difference between two pathies. One is based upon fundamental principles and which are so natural, they are immortal. They are remaining as it is. They are still persist because no one can change them. And another pathy where there is not at all a principle, there is an opinion. Everyone comes with their own thoughts. That thought remains for a certain time and it vanishes. Then someone again comes, again explains it in a different manner. Again, that something, sometimes it remains. This is the difference between two medical fields. Old school, whenever word comes, it is related with the allopathy. The old school declares that the practice of medicine depends entirely on experience, upon what can be found out by giving medicines to the sick. So old school means allopathy. What they say, there is no need to have a principles. It depends upon practice of medicine depends entirely on experience. So if you are more experienced, you have your own opinion, and that opinion one should follow. This is their way. Entirely upon the experience, upon what can be found out, giving the medicines to the sick. So they used to utilize medicines on the animals, then they tries it on human beings, then they find it out, yes, it works, or it never works, or it produces side effects, and etc. And then people understand, yes, these are the things happens. Their shifting methods and theories and rapid discoveries and abandonments of the same fully attest the sincerity of their acknowledgement and declaration. Their shifting methods means if you go little bit back, you will find there were different methods of treating the sick. Cancer, earlier there were methods were different. If someone came, no, first there was a method that do a surgery. Thereafter, the new drugs have developed, they started giving chemotherapy. Then there was the radiation developed, then they started giving radiation. Then someone came, he said that, no, instead of giving doing surgery, we give the chemo first so that tumor will shrink and then we'll do surgery and then we'll give radiation. Another thought comes, no, we give the radiation that will be beneficial instead of side effects of chemo, and then we'll do surgery. See, all these are just controversies behind their opinions because there is no fixed principle to treat that. And this is the problem. So that is a shifting method. Theories, everyone comes out with their own theories. And rapid discoveries and abandonment. Abandonment म्हणजे सोडून देणं. जेवढ्या पटकन नवीन डिस्कवरी येते तेवढ्याच पटकन ती सोडून दिली जाते. There are separate discoveries and abandonment of the same, fully attest the sincerity of their acknowledgements and declaration. Homeopathy leaves allopathy at this point. And so, in this manner, the great division between two skills is affected. And here there is a difference, big difference between homeopathy and allopathy. Homeopathy absolutely doesn't changes their opinion. It is rather rigid, fixed, because our principles are fixed. Our principles are natural. Our principles are happens applicable. Our principles are applicable throughout the universe. They will not going to change, and that's why here it differs from the allopathy. Homeopathy leaves allopathy at this point, and so in this manner, the great division between two schools is affected. That there are principles, homeopathy affirms, the old school denies the existence of principles, and with apparent result, looking at the matter from the standpoint of their practice and method. So old school denies there is no principle, so they deny the principle, and their whole practice depends upon only on the experience. They deal only with ultimates. This sentence one has to understand. They deal with only with ultimates. They observe only the results of disease and either deny or have no knowledge of real nature of man, what he is, where he came from, what his quality is in sickness or in health. Now, whenever you have to learn the philosophy, we have to learn and understand these sentences. These sentences are very important. They deal only with ultimates. What is an ultimate? Ultimate means end products. So if patient has a gastric ulcer, you have diagnosed patient is having gastric ulcer. Gastric ulcer, whether it is a disease or whether it is an end product. Gastric ulcer is the end product of the disease. Disease has prior to it. Disease has started very early. The pathology develops at the end. Liver cirrhosis is the end product. It is an ultimate. Disease, liver cirrhosis is not the disease. Liver cirrhosis is the product of the disease. Gastric ulcer is the product of the disease. Diabetes is the product of the disease. Every pathology is the product of the disease. When you see it with your naked eye, it is the product of the disease. It is not the disease. It is an ultimate. Here, the concept differs, and that's what we have to understand. Then what is the disease? In this chapter, he wants to explain you exactly the concept of the disease. And that's why he says they deal only with the ultimates. They observe only the results of disease. These are the results of disease. So every pathology, for example, you are learning the fatty liver. Fatty liver is not the disease. Fatty liver is the result of the disease. Fatty degeneration of the heart is the result of the disease. Because disease is before that, because of which that change happened in the tissues. They deal only with the ultimates, they observe only the results of the disease and either deny or have no knowledge of the real nature of man. Very important sentence he said. They don't have real understanding about the real nature of man. They consider man only in the realm of physics, only in the realm of material body. They never takes into consideration the dynamic aspect of the human being. They never thinks about the dynamic human being. They never consider this man is the spiritual man where the soul lies. They never consider this man has a mind which is a dynamic. They never consider this. There is a man. This man has a lot of things which are not visible, but which persist in them. Because they deal only with the material aspect of the human being. Whatever is seen with his naked eyes or with the instruments, that's what they believe. They never believe in those things. And that's why they never understand the real nature of the human being. That's what he says. And either deny or have no knowledge of the real nature of the man, what he is, what the man is. They only sees one aspect, physical aspect of the man, denying the dynamic aspect of the human life. Where he came from. They never understands where he came from. Science only explains man comes from previous man, previous life. Life comes from previous life. It is not so. It is not like that just the zygote which is formed from the sperm and ovum gives the next life. No, it only produces the zygote unless and until the soul enters over there, to which we label by the name of vital principle, which enters over there, it never becomes animated. It never goes ahead. They never consider, they never takes into consideration these things, and that's why they fail. They fail because if there is a patient of a sterility, they used to investigate mother, they used to investigate the father, or they investigate the husband and wife in detail. Nothing found abnormal, and still they don't have a child. Where is the problem lies? There is no answer in material science because they think only material. They check the sperm, they check the ovum, everything, but they will not going to get the answer because things, immaterial things, the dynamic things, they will not going to find it out. And that's why he says what he is, where he came from, what his quality is in sickness or in health, that those things they never takes into consideration. So when we have to understand the human being, we have to understand that human being in the state of health as well as state of disease. If we understand the health, then we can understand the disease. When we start understanding the health, the homeopathic definition of health is when mind, body, and soul runs in a perfect harmony. See, definition of health according to homeopathy is when mind, body, and soul runs in a perfect harmony with the help of vital force, the person is called to be healthy. If we understand this disease of the health, then we'll understand how the disease develops. This concept is not there. They consider this is nothing but just a disorder happens in the age. It is not so. Unless and until we understand what is health, we cannot understand what is disease. And this is what they misses. What he further says, they say nothing about the man except in connection with his tissues. So they deals with cells, they deals with tissues, they deals with pathologies. They characterizes the changes in the tissues as the disease, and all there is of the disease, its beginning and at the end. So they will talk about the disease in the form of, yes, there is a hyperplasia, they says there is a hypertrophy, then they says there is atrophy, then they says yes there is a fatty degeneration, then they says there is amyloid degeneration. These are the changes which happens over there in the cells. But why these changes happen, how these changes have started, they don't know regarding it, because they never considered the prior aspect, the dynamic aspect of that human being before that. And unless and until you understand them, this dynamic aspect, we cannot understand the disease. So they deals with they say nothing about man except in connection with his tissue. They characterize the changes in the tissues as the disease, and all there is of the disease, its beginning and its end. In effect, they proclaim disease to be something that exists without a cause. Many times, if you read the medicine book, many times they explain idiopathic terminology. Idiopathic means cause is not known. Then they found it out that we are saying ourselves idiopathic, so they have changed the word, and then they started another word for it. And what is that word? Then they said it is having having a psychological cause. Then they again changed and explained, no, there is a autoimmune. This is the third word which is coming in this field. Why it is coming? Because they are not considering what is prior to it, what happens at the dynamic level. And as they never takes into consideration the dynamics of the human being, they will not going to get and find it out the cause of the disease. And that's why every time they say the cause is unknown, not known. They accept nothing but what can be felt with the fingers and seen with the eyes or otherwise observed through the sense, aided by improved instruments. What this is? They accept nothing but that what can be felt with the finger. So they will going to see whatever is feeling with the fingers, whatever is material, seen by the eyes, naked eyes, or otherwise observed through the sense. Whatever you can observe through your senses, aided by improved instruments. Many instruments are there. Now there are much more. At the time of Kent, there were few. Now there are many instruments which gives you many material aspects of the thing. The finger is aided by the microscope to an elongated point, and the microscopic pathological results of the disease are noted and considered to be a beginning and the ending. That is, results without anything prior to them. So whenever a patient goes to any allopathic doctor, he asks you to go for investigation. You do the investigation. If they find some change over there, they explain, see, you are diseased because you have changes over here. But why these changes have happened, they are not able to answer. What is prior to these changes, they will not going to answer. They will only going to answer, yes, this is the change because of which you are diseased. Actually, this is not the thing because of which you are diseased. You are diseased because of these changes happen. But they consider it in a rather different direction. So these are the things which happens to be there in the field of allopathy. Even today, the same is true. If fever is there persistent for few days, they ask to go for investigation. And then they finds it out, yes, there is a Vidal is positive. Immediately they say you are having a typhoid, that's why you have a fever. This is a this sentence, it's just a false interpretation. If you say like that, you are having typhoid, that's why you are diseased, it is wrong. Why do you have a typhoid? Why do you have a salmonella? Salmonella is there with everyone's body. Why salmonella was not producing typhoid in each and every individual? Only this individual is able suffered from the typhoid. Rest of the individuals are not suffering. So it means it is the half truth. Salmonella typhi produces the typhoid is the half truth, because rest of the things which we have to take into consideration for them. So they never takes into consideration there is something, anything prior to them. That is summary of allopathic teaching as to the nature of sickness. And this is how they look towards the sickness. But the homeopathy perceives, what is it? But homeopathy perceives that there is something prior to these results. Homeopathy says there is something prior to it. And what is that prior? This sentence comes in this chapter again and again. There is something prior to the disease. There is something prior to the disease, and that's what is the sickness. Kent want to explain you that concept. There is something prior to such a disease is sickness. But homeopathy perceives that there is something prior to these results. Every science teaches, and every investigation of scientific character proves that everything which exists does so because of something prior to it. Only in this way can we trace cause and effect in a series from beginning to end and back again from end to beginning. So if we go with this method, we can trace out from where this has been started. Then we can go into a certain, at one level, material ends and something metaphysical starts, dynamic starts. Then you are able to go towards the cause. And then you can find it out that such a dynamic thing was responsible to produce a physical disorder. By this means, we arrive at a state in which we do not assume, but in which we know. So with this method, when we consider the dynamic concepts of the human life, then we can reach to certain level where we can find it out exactly the cause which lies in the dynamics of the human. What that dynamic? What are the different causes dynamics, which we're going to discuss in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we're going to understand this concept of the disease first, and then we'll enter with the next part of the philosophy. Kant's philosophy is a wonderful philosophy which gives you many perspectives of understanding the human life. So we have to learn in this way. We have to learn every sentence from Kant's philosophy. Your concept should be clear, and if they are clear, It will be very useful for you in practice and in your studies. So that's all for today. There is a very less time is remaining. Thank you being there. There are many new members. A warm welcome to you. And to conclude, today night there is a big session regarding the how to pursue Allen's notes and homeopathic materia medica. Last time we have learned one remedy. Today we're going to learn one more with the clinical illustration. My suggestion, be there with the same password and ID at 9 o'clock sharp. Thank you and thanks a lot.